you have to make it animated in some way to show who's talking. You know, other Autobots just have like blinking lights, and that might have been okay. He's got like this whirlwind like beam coming out of his asshole. It's very and it puckers. It literally like moves in and out. It's very weird.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-host, Ash Bonecrusher Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Ba weep, grana weep, ninny bong.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. And at the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, press that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, please subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, Watchmen, and coming up in January, The King Bee and I are doing American Gods Season 3. Find all that information or past episodes at shatontv.com. Finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party. Also on that, starting December 16th, we'll be doing The Expanse Season 5 watch parties every Wednesday. So be sure to subscribe, not just follow, but subscribe to us at shatthemovies.com/Twitch. That also helps the podcast out. Now, all that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, this week's movie was commissioned by Don Sauce. Had a little bit to drink one night when we were doing, I think it was Shappy Hour, and he made a very generous donation. And he asked us to review the 1986 film based on the animated television series, The Transformers, the movie.
And Don Sauce writes, Dear Shat Crew, thanks for agreeing to chat on these movies after I donated during one of the Twitch Shappy Hours early on in the pandemic. I've been meaning to contribute since coming across the pod during the first season of Westworld back before it became aerosoled medical waste. Why Transformers? Well, it was sort of a gift back to Raj, who, to the best of my understanding, still believes it to be a zero wiper. Anyway, my memory of this movie is less favorable. The first and last time I watched it, I must have been around 8 years old. I remember watching it on VHS in our living room and being mad hype about what was about to go down. We moved from Illinois to Virginia when I was 6, and I could never find the Transformers TV show in our new town, so I was psyched to see what had happened with my robot buddies in the interim. Bad shit, it turns out. First, they swapped out the voice actors for most of the cast, which is creepy as fuck when you're a kid. And then they genocided them, spoiler alert, so they could make way for a new toy line. Then Hasbro killed Orson Welles because, fuck it, why not?
Boo.
5 wipes plus a bidet. Love, Don Sauce.
I remember when this donation hit and we were like, what the fuck? And I thought donations, I was like, guys, I unlocked our financial futures. And it kind of died with Don Sauce. Yes, we appreciate the cheers on Twitch. Yes, we appreciate the subscriptions, but this was one monster donation.
I thought somebody must have gotten a stolen credit card. I was like, we're getting in trouble here. This one's not real.
This is why we need to bring back the hard drinking and drugs to Shappy Hour. Guys, I apologize for my sobriety the last 2 months. We're going to do it right starting out on New Year's Day. So don't worry. The true Shappy Hour will be back. Well, The Transformers, the movie, is a 1986 animated film based on the Transformers TV series. It was co-produced and directed by Nelson Shin, who also produced the TV series. The film features the voices of Judd Nelson, Leonard Nemoy, Casey Kasem, Robert Stack, Peter Cullen, and Frank Welker. It also marked the final film roles for Orson Welles, Roger C. Carmel, and Scatman Crothers before their deaths. The film's story takes place in 2005, 20 years after the events of the TV series' second season. After the death of Optimus Prime during a devastating assault on Autobot City, the Autobots are pursued by Galvatron, the regenerated form of Megatron and servant of Unicron, a planet-devouring transformer who sets out to consume Cybertron. The soundtrack comprises synthesizer music by Vince DiCola and heavy metal by various groups. Now, Big D, Ash, we have very different experiences when it comes to Transformers, and the audience might be surprised. I certainly was with our respective experiences with this movie. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your memory or experience with the Transformers, the movie?
So I'm assuming that you're surprised with me because I have never seen this before. I liked the show, the cartoon, but the movie I never saw. And anyway, I was more of like a G.I. Joe guy. I obviously played with the toys. I loved the show. I think I got most of my moral makeup of what was right and wrong from their knowing is half the battle. And then now you know, those PSAs, they taught me what was right and wrong. So for this one, I decided I had to do it right because I know that there was no way that the 86 original VHS transfer was going to hold up. So I splurged on the 30th anniversary, the 4K version, and it looked amazing. And I need to tell you, it was worth the extra $2. And this was a great trip back to the days sitting on the couch and watching cartoons after school.
So when you guys are thinking whether or not you should cheer on Twitch or whether you should make a donation, just know that your extra $2 got Big D, the 4K version of this 1986 animated feature. Well, guys, I saw this movie once when I was 6 years old, like when it first came out. And it'd been so long since I had seen it that I couldn't tell it apart from the TV series. I didn't remember what I saw on TV as a kid, like on Saturday morning cartoons, and what was in the movie. But the one thing I remember about this is something that I think Roger brought up several times on the podcast, which is Optimus Prime's death. I remember that this, as a child, was the first time I'd ever cried out of grief, like out of mourning. Like, yes, I'd cried because somebody took my toy away, or I was hungry, or, you know, I'd hurt myself. But this was the first time that I watched something. I remember it distinctly. And that feeling welled up inside of me. And when Optimus Prime turned gray and his head turned to the side, I was sobbing for the first time in my life. Now, Big D, you said that the surprise was you. And yes, I was surprised you hadn't seen it. But Ash's experience is what really surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Transformers fan when I was a kid. Finn, our son, has a couple of my toys that my parents, we saved very little from Hurricane Katrina, but there was this random box that had a couple of toys in it. And so he plays with an original Power Master Optimus Prime that comes with like the little gun and weapons. He has an original Hound Autobot action figure that I have from the 80s because I played with all of those when I was a kid. And I don't remember necessarily the movie apart from the show. It all kind of, you know, meshes together for me. I couldn't remember what was the movie and what was the show, but I really like them. And I have to be honest, I was pretty excited to go back and watch it and re-experience that. And the most fun part was that I got to do it with my kid, who is a huge Transformers fan. But as we'll talk about, he's a Transformers fan of like the Michael Bay Transformers, not the original 80s Transformers. And I had forgotten how different they became in the early 2000s. And so it was pretty interesting to go back and look at what the original ones were. But thanks, Don Sauce, because this was one of my favorite, you know, action figures when I was a kiddo.
Yeah, Ash, a lot of people talk about like their Star Wars toys that they don't have anymore, their G.I. Joes they don't have anymore. I do miss those, but I think my Transformers, I'm like, how the fuck did I let my mom throw those away? Like Blaster, the tape player one, was the coolest fucking thing in the world. And the tape was even a Transformer. I'm like, how do we let those go?
Or like the Car Hound. Do you remember the Car Hound that lifted up and then transformed on top and on bottom? That one, I don't know where that went, but that one was the coolest.
I had Shockwave in the original Optimus, but I'd gotten it at a garage sale, so I didn't have the trailer. I would love to have those today.
Well, Big D, speaking of trailers, why don't you roll this one?
Hold on tight. The most incredible rock and roll adventure ever is here.
Feed him to the shark guns.
Starring Judd Nelson as Hot Rod, Leonard Nemoy as
Galvatron.
and Orson Welles.
I am Unicron.
Beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. Transformers. Coming to a theater near you this August.
In 2005, the heroic Autobots prepare a counteroffensive against the evil Decepticons who have conquered their home planet. Autobot leader Optimus Prime sends a shuttle to Earth for supplies. Decepticons, led by Megatron, kill the crew of the shuttle and hijack it. Hot Rod, relaxing with human Daniel Witwicky, spots the hijacked shuttle and a battle breaks out. Optimus arrives with reinforcements. He and Megatron engage in brutal combat, leaving both mortally wounded. On his deathbed, Optimus passes the matrix of leadership to Ultra Magnus, telling him that its power will light the Autobots' darkest hour.
So I'm coming into this only having experienced the afternoon cartoon. When this music comes on, I thought right away, I'm like, holy shit, the 4K soundtrack, they must have upgraded it. I was like, there's no way this was the soundtrack in the original movie. When we get that theme song by Lion, it's like, and it's got the drums from Twisted Sister, like, doom, 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 doom. I was like, there's no way this was original. I thought that Dave Mustaine from Megadeth had done the soundtrack. You got the original Transformers, then you got the Touch by Stan Bush. This shit rocks.
Yeah, I'd forgotten the music, but as an adult, the music does not match at all with what is going on the screen. It's like this incredibly upbeat music, and a lot of shit happens, and a lot of Autobots are dying like immediately, and so they're being slaughtered. And like, you know, Optimus Prime, when they're about to kill him, it's that song like "Keep Your Dreams Alive," and they're killing him, and it's like, we're gonna rise to the top, and then the Decepticons kill them. Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
After watching Three Amigos, I was really worried that my childhood nostalgia was not going to hold up here. And the movie starts, and Big D, you're absolutely right. I'm like holding it in, and then I'm like, Transformers! And I knew the fucking lyrics from like 34 years ago. And it doesn't stop there. Those first 30 minutes were kick ass. We get a planet eating a planet. There's that massive attack on Autobot City. There's espionage. There's a shuttle heist. Optimus Prime dies. You got the Dinobots showing up. Devastator forms. I'm like, holy shit, this is a wild ride. It made no sense, but my jaw was wide open. The movie should have ended right after this. Optimus Prime dies and like, roll credits.
Okay, we're 30 minutes in. I've paused it a second time now to check if the 4K version was like the Quentin Tarantino version, the Pulp Fiction version of Transformers, because it is dark. It is scary. Megatron is merciless. He straight up murders the Autobots. He's standing over him, and we see the POV of like the Autobot who's like, oh, let me live, let me live. Megatron's like, pa-chow, just blasts him in the head. How is this a kid's movie?
I don't know. And I have to tell you, I guess like 2020 kids are a lot less tough than 1980s kids, because Finn was devastated. There's this moment in the opening when the planet's being crushed and they show it from the other side and all this red starts spraying out. And he says, he goes, is that the Autobot's blood? And I was like, huh. I think that is. Like, you know, I mean, it's incredibly graphic, and his little eyes were just huge. I mean, you guys talk about how bad I was for letting him watch City of Lost Children. I feel like this was a lot more, you know, just stark and a lot darker and a lot more traumatic for him. I don't know what our parents put us through in the 80s, but maybe that's why we're not, I don't know, maybe that's why we're so dark and angsty in the 90s because of what we saw in the 80s, but it was pretty shocking how violent this movie was.
It's because parents just let us do our thing. You go, a helmet, go ride your bike. You crash, you break your arm, whatever, you lose some teeth, you just rub some dirt in it, you're okay. And I think TV was the same way. Nobody was watching over my shoulder to see what was going on. I don't even know they would have complained. And this movie, yes, it's dark. But as a kid, I never watched this type of stuff. There were the cool kids who watched like Go Shogun and Robotech, but I had never seen any kind of this grown-up animation. And Transformers, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's not beautiful. It looks like they drew every fourth frame. It is not smooth. It is not well done. But there is a distinct design to it that wasn't like an afternoon TV show. This was more like a featured film, like a Disney-fied film. But nobody in here was singing and wearing a hat. And then you get a character who says shit. Fucking Sebastian the Crab never said, oh, fuck. And he deserved to say that. But for some reason, this was the first curse that these kids must have heard.
I'm sorry. Your definition of a Disney animated film is that they sing and wear hats?
Hats.
It's the hats
around
that
and wear
makes
hats.
it Disney?
Yes,
because all the princesses
wear
come with an attached hat?
That's how you know you've grown up. The hats come off.
Yeah, squirrels with hats, chipmunks with hats.
Okay. But I will say, and I know this is not going to be probably a popular opinion, but I do think that Disney animation is easier to watch. And I think that it's better to watch. And I have to be honest, like seeing this old school 80s animation made me kind of dizzy. And this is the last time I'll mention my kid because he only made it through 20 minutes of this film because he hated the animation so much. He kept saying that their mouths don't match their words. He didn't understand why it kept jumping. He thought it was buffering and he kept asking if it was buffering because it kept skipping. So the animation did not hold up for me at all.
So Big D, I agree that the quality of the animation wasn't all that great, but it was very distinct. For me, the thing that jumped out at me about the Transformers, the movie, and this is not a complaint, it was the distortion of scale in a good way. I was laughing my ass off because there were no rules here. Like Megatron in one scene would be the tallest Decepticon, and then he turns into like a handgun that fits in the hand of another Decepticon that gets shot. And I asked during Shappy Hour, I was like, why does he turn into a gun? Like he is a gun. Why is someone else shooting him? And everyone's like, well, Gene, he shoots harder if somebody else is shooting him. I was like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. Multiple Decepticons fitting into other Decepticons. Like one time you're standing next to each other, and at another point you're the vehicle for the other guy. The Dinobots were sometimes big, they were sometimes small. And then the one that really blew my mind was there were Transformers who had guns built into their arms, and they were holding smaller guns and shooting those at each other. But I wasn't mad about it. I was just laughing. It was like, this is fucking fantastic. Nobody gives a fuck.
No, the rules kind of just went out the window. And I think maybe they had 2 or 3 animators who didn't have a sense of scale. You could be as big as a planet 1 second. For God's sake, all of the Decepticons fit into the space shuttle. How is that possible? And then it is miraculously overweight in the vacuum of space, so they have to dump out the other ones. But it was just glorious. And it was almost as if they knew we're not even going to try to make these things realistic.
Yeah, the King Bee pointed out that half of these fuckers could fly on their own. Why are you even on the shuttle?
It wasn't just them, though. It was also on Earth. There's that fish that Daniel catches that in one part is like a goldfish, and then the next part it's like a marlin. And then even Daniel himself, he's like a little kid in one scene. And then all of a sudden, when he's driving Hot Rod, he looks like he's like a fucking 30-year-old man driving the car. I mean, it made no sense. But also, as an adult reflecting on Transformers, I need a little bit of realism in my comic bookiness or in my superhero-ness. And Transformers just don't make sense. I mean, the first part is when Hot Rod, when he turns into the sports car and he's just like jumping rocks, like his car just like bounces from like rock to rock, and their abilities make no sense in the cartoon series, like at all. And I'm not saying I like the Michael Bay Transformers because I don't, but I do like the fact that he at least made them a part of like the real world in the sense of like what their abilities would do, because even in the new animated Transformers series, which is on Netflix, like it makes sense when they transform into what they transform into. But here they transform into like a gun that shoots, and then they transform back into this big giant thing, and then they can't shoot once they're turned into the big giant thing again, or when they're like a tape that fits in a tape deck and then they're 9 feet tall. Like it just their abilities make absolutely no sense.
So as for the car thing, and I'm going to use this justification, this is going to be my get out of jail free card for this entire podcast, which is when you're a kid and you got a Hot Wheels car or a Transformer in its car form, and you're going across the table, and then you get to the couch, and the couch is a foot taller than the table. What do? It jumps, and then it gets on the couch, and now it's going across the couch, and now it's across your mom's lap, now it's across the dog's head. So they're following the same rules as a kid would follow at home, right? It makes sense when you're 6 years old. I mean, I just wonder, Ash, like, did you never play with cars as a child?
I mean, I played with my Transformers, but I guess I played with them in a very logical way where they never jump things. Like, I don't know. Like, I've always had a problem with that. But like actual Hot Wheels, no, I didn't have any Hot Wheels. I had My Little Ponies, but they could fly. So
I'm just imagining Ash with her Transformers, like playing on the kitchen floor when it's linoleum. And she gets the carpet. She's like, this terrain is too rough. I'm turning around.
It's going to hurt the carburetor.
You just made me think of something that makes me so happy. Emma just recently received some old Legos, like they're monsters, they're bugs from her cousins. And the other day I go into her room and she's got these monsters having a tea party with ponies, with Barbies. So to see her mix these violent, bloodthirsty toys with these fluffy, girly things, it made me really happy.
So you guys mentioned earlier that there were probably multiple animators on this set who had different ideas of what size everything should be. I think there are also multiple writers here who had different things that they wanted to express through this film. And somewhere in this writing staff, in this writing room, there was a guy who was an absent father, probably an alcoholic who liked to yell shit all the time, because there is an incredibly sad undercurrent on the side with this Spike and Daniel relationship. We see Spike, the dad, and he's on this Cybertron moon hanging out with Bumblebee in his ridiculous spacesuit and doing like menial tasks. And he's like, oh man, I wish I could be there for Daniel. And I'm thinking, yeah, I wish I could be there for you, son, but I got to do these menial tasks on this Cybertron moon with Bumblebee instead of watching you grow up. He's not doing anything important out there. Like, it's not like Spike is turning the tide in this war. And then he's like, yeah, don't you worry, son. You'll be safe with giant robots that are continually at war and your creepy uncle Hot Rod.
Yeah, and I think, Gene, you always used to say that I would see like abuse in everything from Toy Story to any of the other movies you do.
I thought it was homosexuality you saw in everything.
Oh, no, I see that here also. But as far as the violence, at the end when the dad is strung up and he's like, Dad! He's like, shoot the cover! And the kid is like startled, like this isn't the first time Dad had yelled at him and screamed. At no point do we hear Spike say, keep my son safe. Never does he utter those words. Instead, he lets the Autobots take him on these missions into space. They encourage him to get in a mech suit that the head is only covered by glass and is the front of the car. This isn't a good idea. And as far as the homosexuality, I did get a weird vibe from Hot Rod. Uncle Hot Rod, as he says, it was very camp counselory. I don't know what it was. He's like, hi, Dano. He's like, ooh, that's a whopper. Nobody is watching this kid, let alone Spike or the Transformers.
It wasn't so much what he said, Big D, as the way he was like I swear I got to go back and watch it, but I think his right arm was like ass cradling Daniel too. Like it was kind of under his butt a little bit when they were fishing. It did give me, I mean, listen, if 2 out of 3 of us were made uncomfortable by this and we happen to be the ones that grew up as little boys, there might be something there. What surprised me was after the attack on Autobot City, they're on Earth. There's an entire planet out there. Be like, Daniel, why don't you go stay with your aunt? Daniel, why don't you go literally fucking anywhere else but outer space with us?
Yeah, we're going to hide you, Daniel. No, get up into the front with us. Get up into the Vanguard.
In space, the Decepticons jettison their wounded, including Megatron, at the hands of his treacherous second-in-command, Starscream, the coolest Transformer ever. The wounded are found by Unicron, a sentient planet who consumes other worlds. Unicron offers Megatron a new body in exchange for destroying the Matrix. Unicron converts Megatron into Galvatron and the corpses of other wounded Decepticons into his new troops, Cyclonus, Scourge, and the Sweeps. On Cybertron, Galvatron disrupts Starscream's coronation as Decepticon leader and kills him. Retaking command of the Decepticons, Galvatron leads his forces to seek out Ultra Magnus at the ruined Autobot City. So guys, you know I am loath to make the fart jokes, but something has to be said at this point about Unicron. Was anyone else like distracted by Unicron's planet form? But he looks like some sort of like puckered galactic asshole. And I get that, like, if you're a planet with a hole that you devour things through, you have to make it animated in some way to show who's talking. But, you know, other Autobots just have, like, blinking lights, and that might have been okay. He's got, like, this whirlwind, like, beam yes. coming out of his asshole. It's very and it puckers. It literally, like, moves in and out. It's very weird.
He really talks like, ooh, what are you doing? Oh. So it's weird.
All what he sounds like.
You'll get him, Megatron.
That was on the 4K version, Ash.
Yeah, you could only hear it when you had the Dolby Surround 7.1. Put your robots in me. Oh, I will consume you. I was concerned that I was going to have a seizure. I watched this shit at night, and the flashing lights and the frequency of it, I had to turn on the surrounding lights because I started having trouble keeping up. I'm like, okay, what's going on? What planet is that? Who's Omicron? Who's Mega Ultra Devastator? I'm like, fuck, what's going on? There is 83 named characters in a film that is 84 minutes long. I consider myself, I'm not the smartest guy, but I consider myself that I can get by. I've survived this long, but I was struggling to keep up with a cartoon from 1986 about what the hell was going on.
I completely agree. You know, when I used to watch Game of Thrones, I used to have like a whiteboard that I would keep for Tom because he couldn't keep track of the families and the lineages. And like I was about to like break that out again. And it doesn't help that they also look alike because you've got one dude that's yellow and then you've got another guy that's slightly less yellow and one has a purple accent. And like they all look like identical characters. And maybe it was a budget thing, like with animation. So they only had to draw them once and then like, you know, carbon copy them, but I found it to be incredibly difficult, especially since most of them are not the ones I remember from being a kid. You mentioned Starscream. Starscream is my favorite Decepticon, right? Like, obviously, everybody loves Optimus Prime. Everybody loved Bumblebee and Jazz and all of that, but like, they weren't the big characters in this. It was all these new ones that most of them I didn't even remember.
And that, my friends, is called late product differentiation. So when you make things that look pretty much the same, but you change them slightly and you sell them at a markup. Listen, this was, by all means, a giant toy commercial, right? They're like, oh, you already have Megatron and Optimus Prime like all the other kids? Well, they died. Now you have your incredibly generous planet muncher Unicron being like, oh, by the way, I have a garage full of other shit I'm going to give you. So now, you know, you got Galvatron, Scourge, the Sweeps, Cyclonus. They all kind of look alike. There's a bunch of other dudes you can buy too. But I thought they did an exceptional job of repeating the names over and over. And I feel like this right now. When kids talk to me about fucking Pokemons or whatever the fuck else, what are the ones that are they put in the pit and they spin at each other? Beyblades. I don't know what the fuck they're called. But the kids, they know every single name of every single fucking toy.
Yeah, and this was released in between the second and the third series of the cartoons. And the toy sales had declined, and they said, yeah, we got to do something. Let's kill off the characters. But they killed off Starscream. They killed off Optimus Prime. And they do it within like the first 15 minutes. The kids were pissed. The parents were pissed. This was the red wedding for any kid in 86.
I think that's actually a really great metaphor or comparison there because I forgot how many of them died and it must have been really confusing for kids and watching it. Like, I don't remember being confused, but I'm sure I was. And I was especially confused as an adult because I didn't understand the necessity for Megatron to be turned into Galvatron. Why couldn't Unicron have just fixed his body or rubbed some of that magic fixin' lotion that we saw later when they, you know, they heal the Autobots? It makes absolutely no sense. And of course, y'all know, and everybody out there knows, I overthink absolutely everything. And it started me down this like path of questions of, okay, well, if it's Megatron, but now it's Galvatron, does he still have Megatron's consciousness? And if not, where is Megatron? And does that mean that the Transformers' souls are attached to their physical forms? And if so, and if that's not true, why did they have to do a name change and a voice change? It just created so many questions that I had to pause the movie and do something else because I was so frustrated by not having an answer.
Oh, I think this is a slavery thing. 100%. Like he renames him because he's his slave now. Yeah, it totally is. You're taking away his identity. You're making him Galvatron now. Also, you can sell more toys. But, you know, I think that it was showing Unicron's ownership. You're no longer Megatron. You are now Galvatron. I called you that.
No.
But why did his voice change?
See, I think he was trying to convince people it wasn't Megatron. It was like he took Megatron, he changed him enough where people would be like, hey, who are you? You know, even the Decepticons don't know. But that was not a design upgrade. Not at all. As a toy, it was lame. It was like a tripod. It was at least the pistol you could run around with, and it had some metal in it. That thing was great. I don't know any kid that said, hey, Mom, I want Galvatron. No kid ever said that.
Well, the surviving Autobots escape in separate shuttles, which are shot down by the Decepticons and crash on different planets. Hot Rod and Cup are taken prisoner by the Quintessons, tyrants who execute prisoners by feeding them to the Sharkticons. Hot Rod and Cup learn of Unicron from Kranix, a lone survivor from a planet devoured by Unicron. After Kranix is executed, Hot Rod and Cup escape, aided by the Dinobots and the small Autobot Wheelie, who helps them find a ship to leave the planet.
So if we wanted to break this down onto why the Autobots keep getting their ass kicked, and it's because they're so overly confident. They lack any situational awareness. It makes no sense why at any time they get the smallest victory. They could like fix one part of a robot and be like, yeah, we did it. Woo, congratulations. We've lost them. Let's go get some sleep now, Autobots. No wonder they keep getting snuck up on and getting their ass kicked.
Me, Grimlock, tell me story. But let's be fair here, Big D. Like the Decepticons are not exactly military geniuses either. They're tracing a ship out in outer space. They launch some space torpedoes or rockets or whatever at it. The ship detaches. They literally say that they detach from 3/4 of the ship. That means a quarter of your spaceship full of robots got away and nobody fucking noticed this. Like this story it's just utterly lost at this point. Like the beginning was nonsense, but it was frantic. It was fun. At this point in the story, and again, Big D mentioned it's like only like an 84-minute movie. It shouldn't drag like this. They seem to be making it up as they go along. With a movie shorter than 90 minutes, you can keep it tight, keep the story popping. You don't need to just come up with these weird meandering storylines.
And that's no joke. At this point, I know the Autobots and the Decepticons, but other than that, I can't keep track of anything. Like what group, what faction is off on this ship, what is on this base, what is on this planet. I don't know who's fighting, who's on each other's side, who's an ally, who I'm supposed to care for. Then they land on like some planet of junk and we get some Sharkticons. There's this 5-face Imperial Magistrate. We meet some Transformers that pop up out of the junk. They look like samurais riding motorcycles and they sound like Australians. I'm like, what's going on? Where are we? And I found myself having to watch it multiple times just to keep track of everything going on.
Before we get in, actually, they're two separate planets. So the Imperial Magistrate is not on the planet Junk. The Junkions are on the planet Junk. Come on, Big D.
Well, it did feel like they kind of wrote the entire next season and then just slammed it all into a 90-minute movie. There were even those great 80s cartoon movie like commercial breaks in the film, like where you knew that's where they would have gone to commercial. And I could see maybe how if they stretched it out, that, you know, with 10, 30-minute episodes that maybe it would have made sense. But when it's all slammed together, it's just a jumbled mess. But I do remember as a kid loving how it jumped from plot point to plot point. I like that freneticness. I think when you're a kid, like your mind runs so much faster than when you're an adult. And so it kept me occupied. But I have to be very honest, and maybe this is showing how old I am at 37, but I watched this in 3 settings of 30 minutes because I got so exhausted by it. So I watched her 30 minutes. I went to Target. I watched for another 30 minutes. I cooked dinner and then I finished it because it was really exhausting.
And I know that the producers, they wanted to sell toys, but I think they missed one key component. Optimus, Starscream, the characters they killed, they were loved. You know, they were beloved by all the kids, and that's why they collected the toys. The characters on screen, they don't give a fuck. They don't address it. Optimus is murdered in front of the Autobots. Nobody seems too sad. You know, it's 5 minutes later. They're in the spaceship, hooting and hollering. They're cracking jokes. The Dinobots are like, me here, story. Okay, let's keep going, right? They don't care. They're standing over their dead comrades on probably, I think it's a junk planet. I want to get it wrong, Gene. And the song comes on, Weird Al Yankovic's Dare to Be Stupid. It's like, dare to be stupid. And there's dead Autobots. Dare to be stupid. And everyone's hooting and hollering. Where are the emotions of the movie?
I think Ash nailed it, though. This is a kid's brain. When I mean, listen, you guys have kids. I don't. But I remember as a kid, I could be sad for about 2 minutes. And then like something else will get my attention. I'm like, fuck it, whatever. Dare to be stupid. Like, let's go. So it makes sense to a 6-year-old. I think that we're placing some really unfair expectations on this movie.
Well, I have to say that the dance sequence was the part that held up the most for me. I actually watched this part like 5 or 6 times because I thought it was brilliant. I recommend that all of you out there watch this scene over and over again and watch a different character every single time, because the amount of care and thinking that went into how that personality would dance and move and celebrate the death of their comrades, and then the, sharing of energem treats with these new people, the Australian samurais. The way they thought about that was really well done. It was the best part of the animation, and I thought it was absolutely incredible.
I mean, I would dance too, considering that Retgar is like the best mechanic in the entire fucking universe, I mean, Ultra Magnus got done like Alex Murphy in RoboCop. I mean, they fucked him up. He was like cornered and they shot him like 1,000 times. Retgar just slaps him back together like a Lego project. We should be dancing.
Hey, let's not make this out like he was some mechanic out there turning a wrench. They slapped on, like Ash said, some magic fucking lotion. It not only polishes, it's like that shit they sell in the infomercials. It'll take out scratches and dents.
The special
Where was this for
Jergens.
Optimus? Where was the magic lotion?
Well, the other Autobots land on the junk planet. Galvatron kills Ultra Magnus and seizes the Matrix, now intent on using it to control Unicron. The Autobots befriend the local Junkions, led by Retgar, who rebuilds Magnus. The Autobots and the Junkions fly to Cybertron. Unicron transforms into a colossal robot and begins to consume Cybertron. When Galvatron attacks him, Unicron swallows him whole. So, Ash, you mentioned earlier Leonard Nimoy's voice in here, and of course we have the talents of Orson Welles and a lot of other, famous actors. But the one voice that was unmistakable was John Machida Jr. So he's the Micro Machines man, right? He did Blur's voice, and I was like, holy shit, like that, it unlocked a part of my childhood. I was like, oh my God, that voice. And I didn't realize this. I knew that he was a fast talker because he's Micro Machines man, but he was actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's fastest talker at this time with 586 words per minute. And now, since then, there have been people who went even faster than that. I think 2 people have gone faster than him. And he questions and debates the legitimacy of anybody who claimed to be a faster talker than he is, which I think is fucking hilarious.
Gene, you're talking about names in this movie as far as the voice actors. I need to address the Transformers names because I could not keep up with the naming convention. People were changing names. So what I want to do here is, because both of you are Transformers fans, you've identified as a group that should know your Transformers stuff. So I want to start a new thing I'm going to try here once, where I'm going to do a trivia question for you two. You're not prepared. Audience, you can play along. When you know the answer, you shout out, and we're going to see who does it. And this is our first and probably only test of Beat the Shat. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to provide you...
Did you just play The Weakest Link?
No.
Or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
So I'm going to read you one by one a list of 7 Transformers names. One is fake, but they are all inappropriate. When I reach the fake name, if you've identified it, scream it out. Everybody play at home in your car. Windbreaker.
Real.
Huffer.
Real.
Erector.
Real.
Big Daddy.
Fake.
Not real.
That one is real. Megafist.
Real.
That one is fake. Drill Nuts and Blowpipe are also real names.
No, I knew those.
Who was coming up with these names? And hopefully in your car, you knew that Megafist was the fake one.
These are actually all characters that Flavor Dave is called in as well. So,
well, speaking of the characters, this part of the movie, Unicron, he changes shape, right? So he goes from being the asshole to being a big ol' ass robot, right? With the big wings. And I have to say, I thought his robot shape was actually pretty cool, but I don't know why he wouldn't just float through space like that. I don't know why he would want to be a planet. I figure like you'd want to be more interesting with the big wings and stuff. And I arguably think he's more intimidating floating through space as a planet-sized winged robot than he is floating through space as like a wannabe Death Star.
Well, what are you trying to sneak up on somebody? You're a fucking planet eater. People are scared of you. Fly around as that robot. It looked ridiculous. All I could see when Unicron is transforming into that like giant robot, I kept seeing Spaceballs 1 transform into the Mega Maid. The vacuum cleaner would come out and the crown. This was not an upgrade. He should stay this way all the time.
See, I totally disagree. When Unicron was just a space anus, he was like indestructible. Like you're like, I don't know where to attack. The only place you could go is that one hole, and you died if you went in it. Right.
And you don't
now, as a giant bot, he's got glass eyes. There's a whole factory going on inside him, which, by the way, I think has helped me solve the King Bee's like digestive issues. He's got that trap door open on his acid vat in his stomach. That's what's going on in there. But I appreciate the imagination, but Unicron is all kinds of flawed.
Yeah, but you're talking about toys. Like this one is the one you can see is like the big seller, the big toy, because nobody's going to buy an asshole ball. Like everybody's going to buy their kid the big robot, not, the puckered asshole. And I do think that it would have been a pretty great toy. And I don't know, Big D, if Emma plays with these, but they have this brand of toys now. They're called Imagine Next. And so they make younger kids like ages like 4 to 8, like that age group. They make these sets for them. And they grow in size. And so they start out like about as tall as Finn. And then they've just released this massive bat cave that's all the way up almost to my neck. So like the bigger the toys get, the more the kids want them and the bigger the price tag you can charge for it. Because the Batman said it's $167 for this surround sound bat cave that they just released. So I could see like this coming out around Christmas. Like you have to buy the new Galvatron and you got to buy this giant ass Unicron.
I would buy the ass planet before Galvatron. That's a fucking no-go. Mommy, give me the tusked planet with the opening I could play with.
I just want to add that item to the Shat store online, shatontv.com/shop, which is the asshole ball. I think we need to make it.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least a shirt.
You just shake it and it's some sort of a quote from one of us.
Oh.
It could be like a magic 8-ball. And inside the asshole, it tells them something,
Yeah.
But I also think a flaw, y'all were talking about how Unicron is flawed in his design. The other thing that's completely flawed is the fucking Matrix. Like, this is the most dangerous weapon that exists. And then you don't put any protection around it. You just have those really handy handles on either side of it. Like, there's no, I don't know, like code or algorithm or password that you need to get inside. There's no exterior covering. I feel like you're just asking for a Decepticon to get it.
But I think we saw that that Galvatron couldn't use it. Like it has to want to be used by you, like Big D.
So you just decide just to wear it as some kind of a fucking accent piece, as like a gangster chain. What was he fucking doing with it?
I do like that the Autobots put it inside their chest, but Megatron just had it like on that chain. That was pretty sweet. MC Megatron. Well, the Autobots crash their spaceship through Unicron's eye, and become separated. Daniel saves his father, Spike, from Unicron's digestive system, and the group rescue Jazz, Bumblebee, and Cliffjumper. Galvatron attempts to form an alliance with Hot Rod, but Unicron forces him to attack. Hot Rod obtains the Matrix and becomes Rodimus Prime, the new Autobot leader. Rodimus tosses Galvatron into space and uses the Matrix power to destroy Unicron. The Autobots celebrate the war's end as Unicron's severed head orbits Cybertron. Now, one group we didn't mention in this entire plot point is the Dinobots. And I feel like at the end of this movie, I was reserving judgment, and they did have one shining moment. But to me, the biggest mistake they made in this movie is the missed opportunity of how they use the Dinobots. Like, if people don't understand the Dinobots, you have the Autobots, and there's like different layers of acceptance in Autobot society. And like the Dinobots are like on the fringes. Like they're like they're like animals. Like they're dinosaurs, right? They're fucking crazy. They're tough. They're not exactly polite. And they're this tight group that's like, no, they're not. Well, I mean, they're kind of dumb, but they're like this tight group that everybody else doesn't like. So they're loyal to each other. It's like us, right? They're misunderstood. They're maligned. And so what they should have had with the Dinobots is like, don't make them a joke. Is that they're like, everyone's like, oh, fuck, do we bring the Dinobots into this? And they're like, fuck, we got it now. Like, it's like shit's gotten bad. The Dinobots got to show up. They got to show up, kick all kinds of ass, and be like uneasy allies. Instead, they're the butt of the joke throughout the movie.
I can't fucking take you serious when you show up to the strategy briefing. Tell me story. Oh.
Right, but you see that when they actually attack Unicron, they're fucking tearing up metal, they're fucking shit up, they're breathing fire, they're badass, right? They're flying through space. Yeah. Earlier in the movie, they can't even get up a ramp. It just kept thinking, like, why don't you just tell them to turn into their like Cybertronian form and just walk up the fucking ramp? No. We gotta lasso them and guide them up a ramp. It's ridiculous.
And I got to say, in all these deaths, I would have rather had Daniel die. I think that would have thrown. No, I think that could have thrown in a lesson for the kids that you stay away from international space battles or interspace battles. But that's the only character we would have cared about. Instead, he's running out safe, and Dad doesn't seem to be too worried.
It'd be like the world's worst toy commercial. It'd be like, hey, kids, come die.
No, it would make them buy the new versions of the toy to save Daniel or to resurrect him as Mega Ultra Dano. Yeah, Dano.
I don't think the magic lotion works on the humans. I don't think it
Works
does.
on me.
The magic lotion, it works on humans. It works on me.
It works in a different way on Daniel. But I think that the ending of this movie is ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, I totally bought in to a lot of this movie, but the whole hot rod becoming Rodimus Prime. Can we just talk about the laziness? Whoever's like, so what do we call him? Rodimus. Like, it's so stupid. But I was glad to see Judd Nelson get his due. And did any of you guys throughout the movie just randomly, it would sound like Bender from Breakfast Club? And you're like, wow. I mean, he could have at least put a voice on, but I don't know. I didn't buy the ending. I thought it was really stupid, a really stupid way to wrap it up. But hey, it's Transformers from the 80s. What do you expect, right?
This year on everybody's Christmas list, the Planet Anus and Magic Lube. How could this go wrong?
I think it's going totally right. And now is the time when we get to the Shat meter. Our wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes the movie would take to get off your respective bums. 0 wipe is magic lotion straight from Retgar, resurrecting any of your dead friends. And 5 wipes is a trip down the gullet of Unicron getting digested in an acid vat. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for The Transformers, the movie?
So I was actually really surprised of my viewing. This was one of the movies. There's very rarely a time on this podcast where I go in like totally blind. And here I thought I wasn't going in blind, but I really was because I didn't remember much about this film. Clearly, I didn't remember all the new characters. And so since I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, I was watching it without those nostalgia glasses. And parts of it were kind of rough. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about it, but the plot meandered. I thought the music was overtly distracting. I didn't love the destruction of all the Transformers we've loved before. I think I'm harboring a resentment from when I was a kid because it still made me angry today. And I do get the toy grab, but I think it's kind of a terrible thing to do to an audience that's been so loyal to your brand. And I just didn't like it. Give me any of the animated films from the 80s over this one, but I don't think it's like a 5 white movie or even a 4, but I think it's worse than average. And so despite my love of the Transformers as a people or as a franchise, I give it a 3.5 wipes.
All right, that's 3.5 wipes from Ash. Big D, how about you?
I thought the movie was missing something we needed. The humans. We only have 2 human characters. I thought we were going to be battling for Earth. So for me as a new viewer to the movie who wasn't invested into the cartoon, I didn't really care about the wandering plot and the hundreds of characters it seemed like. But it was a fun ride. The score was kick-ass. I imagine in the 80s, people were just like fucking rocking to this, and it didn't matter what was going on screen. It was fun to go back to when it was a simpler time. And, you know, when you learned your moral character from a television show and PSAs. And I got to say, for that, it was something different. It wasn't a good something. It wasn't a bad something. But it was a something in the middle. And I give it 2.5 wipes.
All right, Big D, I'm right there with you at 2.5 wipes. Now, there's a cynical side of me that says, look, the only people who died in this movie were the toys that everybody already had. And then the ones who survived, they're like, well, nobody's bought a cliff jumper yet. Nobody has a Bumblebee. We'll leave those on. We still got inventory, so they get to survive. I mean, this was a toy commercial. And the movie is stupid, but it's a fun kind of stupid. Like, I laughed out loud several times. The opening action was wild. And while we've said that we had to shut off nostalgia for a movie like Three Amigos, like, be honest, like, what does it hold up? Or Toy Story? I think that Transformers, the movie, it's different. Those movies, Toy Story and Three Amigos, were made with considerations for adults or, you know, parents as part of the audience, right? So when Pixar made Toy Story, yeah, it's a kid's movie, but they knew that we'd be watching it too. And so they're like, okay, we got to put in some stuff in there for the adults. The Transformers, the movie, I think, only needed to make sense to a 6-year-old. They didn't give a fuck if adults cared about it. They wanted kids to watch it, enjoy it, and go out and buy toys. And Ash, you mentioned it earlier as far as, kids from 2020 versus kids from the 80s. I mean this as a compliment, as a good thing. Like, you have a sensitive kid from a different generation. Kids are better people now, than we were. I think this movie made total sense for a 6-year-old in 1986. But to be fair, as Big D said, and as you said, Ash, half of it is lazy. It is meandering. It's just a purely average movie. So I'd say on that note, I'm sticking with my 2.5 wipes. So with 2.5 wipes from me, 2.5 wipes from Big D, and 3.5 wipes from Ash, that gives us an average Shat score of 2.83 repeating wipes for The Transformers, the movie.
So Gene, with that score, that places it now alone in the 122 spot. It is slightly better than Big, Escape to Victory, and Maximum Overdrive, and slightly worse than Air Force One, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this way more than The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Don't even get me started on that. That is such a great movie.
I'm glad you brought that up. Netflix has, they had been doing a series called The Films That Made Us. And they have a holiday version this holiday season with 2 movies, Elf and A Nightmare Before Christmas. Gene, if you get a chance in your busy holiday schedule, watch the one on A Nightmare Before Christmas. I felt guilty about what we had done to that film.
But we mentioned during our review of it that we knew a lot of hard work went into it.
I
We just didn't enjoy that hard work.
I learned more about the difficulties behind the scenes, not just technical with the creators, and it made me have much more respect for the final product.
I mean, just that one song. What's this? What's this?
What's this?
There's magic everywhere. Oh my God, I love that movie.
I was about to ironically say nobody gives a shit what's going on behind the scenes. We just want to know what the end product is, but I'm just going to shut up. All right, Big D, now is the point in the podcast where we get to our shout-outs, voicemails, and emails. What do we have in the inbox this week?
So this week we got an email from Carlos, who works for a company that does podcast rankings, and he wanted to share some of our impressive growth recently, and I thought it'd be cool to share with you guys, with the audience, that in the last 30 days, we've been on the rise. And I've mentioned before, we're up 5 places in the U.S. film review category to number 11 throughout all of the United States. We had that same increase in the U.K., so we're number 11 in the U.K. So we're very happy. We're moving up the charts there.
Woo-hoo.
But then we got some that I'd never seen. We are the number 1 podcast for film review in Serbia.
Pushi Kurits.
Number 2 in Ireland. Number 2 in Ghana, and who would have known that Shat the Movies was popular in Saudi Arabia? But we are. There's probably, how many Saudi Arabian film review podcasts are there, you think?
I mean, they watch a lot of movies in Saudi, so I don't know. But I'm kind of offended by that Iran and Kurdistan aren't holding it down for me. I'm a little offended right now.
You need to work harder.
But if you give a shitty review in Saudi Arabia, would they take your head off? What is a 1-star?
There's a lot of Houstonians that live in Saudi Arabia with the oil industry, so maybe it's just our transplant Texans.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I think the consistent thing here is we're very popular in countries where women are second-class citizens.
Only you would find that nugget. But on that note, we want to thank everybody who listens to us, whether you are in one of these countries or if you're elsewhere around the world. Thank you for supporting us, liking and sharing with your friends. It's why we keep it going. And thank you for being part of our family here in this crazy-ass 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Don Sauce, for your generous contribution to Shat and bringing The Transformers, the movie, back into our lives. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
So next week, we go from a 1986 animated film to the dark satire of the work life of a typical mid to late 1990s software company, which tells the tale of a corporate drone, Peter Gibbons, who hates his soul-killing job at the software company Initech. While undergoing hypnosis, Peter is left in a blissful state in which his therapist dies in the middle of a session. He refuses to work overtime, play games at his desk, and unintentionally charms 2 consultants into putting him in a management fast track. When Peter's friends learn they're about to be downsized, they hatch a revenge plot against the company inspired by Superman 3. It came out in February of 1999, and this will be a great one to review.
All right. Well, thank you, Don Sauce, for your commission, and thanks everyone for your commissions that keep Shat the Movies going. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, still time to get it before Christmas, or commissioning your own movie. You can find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatontv.com, where everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. And thank you again to everybody who sent your kind words in reviews on iTunes, via email, on Twitter. We really, really appreciate it. It keeps us going. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash Schlafly, Big D, Dick Ebert, and the King Bee, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
From Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and co-creator of King of the Hill, comes a movie about people who go to work. Who are part of a team.
And remember, next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day.
Okay, but I could set the building on fire.
Who respect their boss.
We need to talk about your flair.
Well, I have 15 pieces on.
15 is the minimum. Brian, for example, has 37 pieces of flair on today. And a terrific smile.
And need to escape.
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm gonna go anymore.
One of these days, I just kick this piece of...
I'm thinking now it might be more fun to just get fired. And I've always wondered what that would take.
Oh, Peter, listen.
Well, it looks like you've been missing quite a bit of work lately.
Well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
We're going to be getting rid of these people here. Mr. Samir, okay. Not going to work here anymore anyway.
You haven't been showing up and you get to keep your job.
Actually, I'm being promoted.
Thank you, Bob.
This is a suck.
They're gonna throw you out on the street so that Bill Lumberg's stock will go up. Ooh, it's completely unfair. Initech deserves to go down.
We're just the guys to do it.
Tell me about that virus you're always talking about. The one that could rip off the company for a bunch of money.
I'm not going to do anything illegal, Peter.
Illegal? Samir, this is America. The worst they're gonna do is they put you in a white-collar minimum security resort for a couple of months. You know they have conjugal visits there?
I might be showing her my O face.
Oh. They let you have sex with women?
They sure do.
Okay, I'll do it.
Office Space.
I know you've been getting pretty depressed about your job and everything, and so I just wanted to tell you, good things can happen in this world. I mean, look at me. oh.
What I was going to do for you for the other Beat the Shat was I was going to play you a version of The Touch and see if either of you knew what it was from. So just listen and see if you could do it. No idea?
The Hot Rod?
It's not in the movie. It's in another 90s movie.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Hot Rod, but that's not a 90s movie. Is that from Jay and Silent Bob?
No, it's from Boogie Nights. It's Dirk Diggler.
Oh, you're a winner. Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, that was Dirk Diggler in the
when he gets in the studio.
He's like, do you think the bass is just you drowning out my voice? And the guy's like, no, I don't think that's the bass.